Something massive just changed in this war. And if you are relying on traditional defense headlines, you are missing the single most critical structural shift of the entire campaign. In the last 24 hours, Ukrainian long-range strike capabilities did something that military planners in Moscow thought was fundamentally impossible. They systematically located, isolated, and destroyed the final operational 5.5 ZH-6M Nebo-M mobile multiband radar system guarding the southwestern air corridors directly protecting Moscow. My name is Colonel Adrian Thornwell. I commanded United States Army forces in Europe. And I can tell you from decades of studying air defense architecture that when a nation loses its primary early warning radar canopy over a key strategic sector, it does not just lose an expensive piece of hardware. It loses the ability to see, react, and survive. Let me be precise about what happened in this operation. The Nebo-M is not a standard tactical radar unit that you can pull out of storage and replace overnight. This is a $100 million multi-billion ruble integrated complex made up of 3 distinct radar arrays, the VHF band RLM-M, the L-band RLM-D, and the X-band RLM-S, all networked through a centralized KU-RLK command post on heavy 8x8 BAZ chassis. It was specifically designed by Russia's Almaz Antey to counter stealth aircraft, high-altitude ballistic missiles, and low-flying precision cruise missiles at ranges out to 600 kilometers. Russian doctrine relied on this exact radar shield to plug the massive surveillance gaps between their fixed Voronezh DM strategic early warning stations and their localized S-400 Triumph surface-to-air missile batteries. Ukrainian unmanned systems forces, working in tight synchronization with long-range intelligence units, executed a layered multi-axis suppression campaign. They did not attack the radar blind. They mapped its emission signature over days using electronic intelligence assets, identified the exact moment the command vehicle was transmitting to coordinate secondary S-491N6E surveillance nodes, and launched a swarm of low-observable Liuti deep strike drones supported by specialized decoy packages. When the Russian operators turned on their active electronic countermeasures to jam the incoming wave, they lit up the electromagnetic spectrum like a flare in the dark. Ukrainian operators immediately fed those real-time targeting telemetry coordinates into high-speed strike vectors. The resulting precision impact did not just kill the antenna arrays. It cooked the internal signal processing components beyond repair. Stay with me, because by the time I am finished explaining the domino effect of this strike, you will understand why senior commanders inside the Kremlin are in a state of outright panic right now. Let me explain why this is so significant. War is not fought on paper. On paper, Russia possesses thousands of air defense missiles and hundreds of surface-to-air launch tubes. But launch tubes are completely useless if your target acquisition radar is blind. Without the Nebo-M fusing high-frequency tracking data into the regional air defense network of the Western Military District, every S-400 and S-300 V4 battery stationed around Naro-Fominsk, Ryazan, and the outer perimeter of the Moscow Oblast is now forced to operate in autonomous mode. That means their engagement radars can only see what is directly in their immediate line of sight, drastically reducing their reaction window from tens of minutes down to mere seconds. Ukraine has effectively punched a wide, unmonitored blind spot right through the multi-layered air defense bubble that was supposed to make the capital untouchable. Think about what that means for the broader air campaign. This radar elimination is not an isolated event. It is part of a deliberate, systematic shaping operation. Over the last month alone, Ukrainian forces have struck over 30 separate Russian air defense nodes, including Nebo-U stations in occupied Crimea, Nebo-SVU units in Belgorod, and Sopka-2 route surveillance systems along the border regions by methodically stripping away the high-value radar sensors. The eyes and ears of the Russian Aerospace Forces Ukraine is shaping the battle space for sustained deep strike operations against the industrial base of the Russian Federation. Let me step back and give you the strategic picture as I see it right now. We are watching a masterclass in asymmetrical attritional warfare. While Russia continues to expend thousands of artillery shells and throw meat assault infantry waves at tactical hedge lines in Donetsk and Pokrovsk for incremental gains of a few hundred meters, Ukraine is targeting the operational center of gravity. They are dismantling Russia's ability to sustain a modern technological war. Look at what is happening to the Russian macroeconomy and industrial machine as a direct result of these air defense breaches. Without radar coverage to intercept low-altitude strike drones, Russia's energy infrastructure is completely exposed. Ukrainian deep strikes have systematically hammered major oil refineries across the western Russian landmass, from Omsk to Kirishi, Saratov, and Moscow. We are seeing verified data showing that over 30% of Russia's actual domestic oil refining capacity has been knocked offline. The Russian Defense Ministry cannot shield these massive refinery complexes because they simply do not have enough tactical Panzer S-1 or Tor M2 systems to place one next to every single catalytic cracking tower in the country. To make matters worse for Moscow, Western sanctions mean that critical replacement components, specifically the specialized microelectronics, high-frequency sensors, and specialized catalysts required for advanced oil refining, are virtually impossible to import at scale. The Kremlin has already been forced to institute sweeping bans on domestic diesel and gasoline exports to stem internal fuel panics and price spikes inside major cities. When a global energy superpower is forced to ration fuel to its own population in military logistics trucks, you know their strategic depth is collapsing. In parallel, Ukraine's unmanned systems forces have expanded Operation Malachka, targeting the Shadow Fleet tankers and maritime supply lines in the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea. Over 200 logistics and energy transfer vessels have been struck or interdicted. This is economic attrition in its purest form. Russia relies almost entirely on hydrocarbon revenues to fund its wartime budget, pay sign-on bonuses for replacement soldiers, and buy weapons from foreign suppliers. By systematically blinding their radar network and destroying their refining capacity, Ukraine is draining the financial engine that keeps the Russian war machine running. This brings us to the geopolitical and strategic command shifts unfolding behind closed doors. Within the Russian high command, the loss of another irreplaceable radar shield creates severe institutional friction. Officers are being relieved of command. Defense officials are pointing fingers between the aerospace forces and ground-based air defense units. And resources are being dangerously stretched. Russia has already been forced to pull air defense assets away from frontline combat units in Ukraine and relocate them to protect critical state infrastructure deep inside the motherland. That leaves Russian field units, command posts, and ammunition depots along the southern and eastern fronts completely vulnerable to Ukrainian tactical aviation, HIMARS strikes, and F-16 engagements. At the same time, the Kremlin's growing dependency on external authoritarian lifelines, whether it is relying on Iranian Shahed drone shipments or North Korean artillery munitions and personnel, proves that Russia's own military-industrial complex cannot keep pace with the rate of consumption on this battlefield. When you have to rely on foreign dictatorships to supply basic artillery ammunition and mass-produced attack drones while your own high-tech radar systems are being picked off one by one, your long-term strategic posture is fatally compromised. Look at the stark strategic asymmetry governing this war. Russia's overarching strategy has been to inflict pain, striking Ukrainian civilian infrastructure, energy grids, and residential centers in an attempt to break the collective will of the Ukrainian people and leverage terror into diplomatic concessions. But Ukraine's strategy is built on pure operational logic, systematically destroying Russia's capability to wage war. In a long war of attrition, capacity matters more than pain, always. History shows us time and again that populations under attack do not break, they harden. Willpower does not evaporate under bombardment. What breaks a nation in a total war of attrition is the exhaustion of military capability. The moment you run out of radar systems, the moment your refineries stop producing aviation fuel, the moment your logistics trucks run dry, and the moment your industrial base can no longer replace high-tech losses. Russia is burning through capital, equipment reserves, and strategic capabilities at an unsustainable rate. A nation cannot maintain an offensive footprint abroad when it can no longer defend the airspace above its own capital. The destruction of the Nebo-M radar shield guarding Moscow is not just a tactical victory for Ukrainian intelligence and drone operators. It is a clear herald of the long-term structural weakness inside the Russian defense apparatus. The world needs to stay focused on what is actually happening on this battlefield, beyond the daily noise and political commentary. Strategic patience, industrial output, and technological adaptation are deciding the outcome of this conflict day by day. Stay sharp, stay informed. We will be back with more updates as this campaign continues to develop.